A small black girl faces cruel bullies, unveiling her WWE star uncle in a jaw-dropping reveal. Tap, like, and subscribe to watch her journey to comedy stardom in our newest video. And don't miss more. The auditorium at Oakwood High School buzzed with the chatter of students, its worn wooden stage illuminated by a single spotlight, the air tinged with the scent of old wood and anticipation. Aisha Carter stood at the edge of the stage, her small frame a delicate silhouette against the backdrop of faded curtains, her bright yellow dress a splash of color that matched her vibrant personality, her curly hair tied into a high ponytail, her brown eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Her hands clutched a crumpled piece of paper with her latest jokes. Aisha was a freshman of African descent, her height barely reaching 5 feet, her body slight but her spirit boundless, her love for humor and connection a fire that burned brightly. She was known for her cheerful demeanor, always ready with a smile or a quip to brighten someone's day. But at Oakwood High, her warmth was a target. Her classmates more interested in mocking her openness than celebrating her light. Aisha was often the smallest in her class, a fact that made her an easy mark for the taller, more dominant students who saw her as an outsider. As she prepared to step onto the stage for the comedy club's open mic night, a group of students gathered near the front row, their voices a low murmur as they watched her. Heather Brooks, a tall, popular sophomore with long blonde hair and icy blue eyes, led the group. Her friends, a mix of girls and boys, all white, all towering over Aisha, their laughter a constant assault. "Look at her," Heather called, her voice sharp, her tone loud enough for Aisha to hear. "She thinks she's funny. What a joke." Aisha's heart sank, her hands trembling as she gripped her paper. She tried to focus on her jokes, her smile a quiet defiance, but Heather's voice cut through her concentration like a knife. "She's so tiny," Heather continued, her tone mocking. "What's she gonna do? Tell jokes for kindergartners?" Her friends laughed, their voices a chorus of cruelty. Aisha's cheeks burned, her hands trembling. She wanted to fight back, to tell Heather she was wrong, but the fear of escalating the situation, of drawing more attention, kept her silent. She turned back to her paper, her heart aching. She just wanted to be herself, to share her laughter in peace. But Heather wasn't done, her voice a relentless assault. "Where'd you even get that dress?" she said, her tone sharp. "Did you steal it from a doll store? It's pathetic." Aisha's throat tightened, her voice barely a whisper. "I made these jokes myself," she said, her words a quiet defiance. "I just want to make people laugh." Heather's laugh was loud, her voice a mix of amusement and contempt. "Laugh?" she said, her tone mocking. You're a clown, but not the funny kind." The group laughed harder, their voices a mix of amusement and scorn. The other students in the auditorium glanced over, their whispers a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "She's just trying to have fun," a boy in a soccer jersey murmured. "They're being awful to her," his friend replied. But no one intervened, their silence a weight on Aisha's shoulders. She felt alone, her shame a heavy burden, her passion for humor a double-edged sword. It was her joy, her escape, but it also made her a target. The auditorium was Aisha's stage, a place where she could channel her energy, her warmth. But even here, she wasn't safe. Heather's group grew bolder, their taunts escalating as they moved closer to the stage. One of the girls, a tall, slender girl named Lauren, tossed a crumpled piece of paper at Aisha, the wad hitting her shoulder. "Oops," Lauren said, her tone mocking. "Guess you'll have to tell a joke about that." Aisha's heart raced, her hands trembling. "Leave me alone," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. Lauren laughed, her voice a mix of amusement and contempt. "Make us," she said, her tone a challenge. Heather smirked, her voice sharp. "She won't," she said. "She's too small, too weak. She doesn't belong here." The group moved closer, their presence a looming threat. One of the boys, a stocky kid named Ethan, grabbed a nearby water bottle and squirted it at Aisha, the cold liquid splashing onto her dress. Oops, Ethan said, his tone mocking. Guess you'll have to perform all wet now. Aisha wiped the water from her face, her hands trembling, her voice a quiet defiance. I'm not giving up, she said, her words a quiet promise. I belong here. Heather's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. You'll never belong, she said, her voice cold. You're a joke, and we'll make sure everyone knows it. The other students in the auditorium continued to whisper, their voices a mix of curiosity and discomfort. She's just trying to make people laugh, a girl in a track uniform murmured. They're going too far, her friend replied, but no one intervened. Aisha felt their stares, a weight she couldn't escape, her shame a heavy burden, but she held on to her humor. Her resilience, the lessons from her uncle, a WWE wrestler who had always encouraged her to shine. Keep smiling, kid, he'd said, his voice a quiet encouragement, a mantra that gave her strength. The tension in the auditorium was palpable, the air thick with the weight of Heather's malice. Aisha's heart raced, her mind racing. She didn't know how much longer she could endure this, how much more she could take, but she knew a moment of reckoning was coming, a moment that would push her to her breaking point, a moment that would test her strength, her truth, her very identity. And the bustling hallways of Oakwood High School were a whirlwind of activity, the walls lined with colorful posters advertising upcoming events, the air filled with the chatter of students rushing between classes. Aisha Carter navigated the crowded corridor, her small frame weaving through the throng, her bright yellow dress a beacon of her cheerful spirit, her curly ponytail bouncing with each step, her brown eyes sparkling with a warmth that belied the challenges she faced. A crumpled notebook clutched in her hands held her latest collection of jokes. Aisha was a freshman of African descent, her height barely reaching 5 feet, her personality a vibrant contrast to her slight stature. She was known for her infectious laughter and her knack for making others smile, always ready with a kind word or a playful quip. But at Oakwood High, her friendliness was a lightning rod for cruelty. Her classmates often shunned her for being too much, their rejection a constant sting. Aisha was often the smallest in her class, a fact that made her an easy target for those who saw her openness as a weakness. As she made her way to her locker, a group of students lingered nearby, their voices a low hum as they watched her. Heather Brooks, the ringleader, stood with her arms crossed, her long blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, her icy blue eyes glinting with disdain. Her friends, a mix of popular girls and boys, all white, all towering over Aisha, their laughter a constant assault. Look at her, Heather called, her voice sharp, her tone loud enough for Aisha to hear. She thinks she's everyone's best friend. What a clown. Aisha's heart sank, her hands trembling as she opened her locker. She tried to focus on her notebook, her smile a quiet defiance, but Heather's voice cut through her thoughts like a shard of glass. She's so annoying, Heather continued, her tone mocking. Always talking, always laughing. No one wants to hear it. Her friends laughed, their voices a chorus of scorn. Aisha's cheeks burned, her hands trembling. She wanted to fight back, to tell Heather she was wrong, but the fear of escalating the situation, of drawing more attention, kept her silent. She turned back to her locker, her heart aching. She just wanted to be herself, to share her joy and peace. But Heather wasn't done, her voice a relentless assault. What's in that notebook? She said, her tone sharp. More of your stupid jokes. No one cares. You're a nobody. Aisha's throat tightened, her voice barely a whisper. I just want to make people smile, she said, her words a quiet defiance. I'm not hurting anyone. Heather's laugh was loud, her voice a mix of amusement and contempt. Smile, she said, her tone mocking. You're a joke, but not the funny kind. You're just pathetic. The group laughed harder, their voices a mix of amusement and scorn. The other students in the hallway glanced over, their whispers a mix of curiosity and discomfort. She's just being herself, a boy in a basketball jersey murmured. They're being awful to her. his friend replied. But no one intervened. Their silence a weight on Aisha's shoulders. She felt alone, her shame a heavy burden, her love for connection a double-edged sword. It was her light, her escape, but it also made her a target. The hallway was Aisha's stage, a place where she could shine with her warmth. But even here, she wasn't safe. Heather's group grew bolder, their taunts escalating as they moved closer to Aisha's locker. Lauren, a tall, slender girl with a sharp smile, stepped forward. "Hey, Aisha," she called, her voice sharp. She grabbed a nearby textbook, Aisha's, and tossed it into a nearby trash can. "Oops," she said, her tone mocking. "Guess you'll have to dig that out now." Aisha's heart raced, her hands trembling. "That's mine." "Must," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. "Give it back." "Oh," Lauren laughed, her voice a mix of amusement and contempt. "Make me," she said, her tone a challenge. Heather smirked, her voice sharp. "She won't," she said. "She's too small, too weak. She doesn't belong here." The group closed in, their presence a looming threat. Ethan, a stocky boy with a cruel grin, grabbed a nearby bottle of soda from his bag and shook it, spraying the fizzy liquid onto Aisha's dress. "Oops," he said, his tone mocking. "Guess you'll have to go to class all sticky now." Aisha wiped the soda from her face, her hands trembling, her voice a quiet defiance. "I'm not giving up," she said, her words a quiet promise. "I belong here." Heather's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. "You'll never belong," she said, her voice cold. "You're a nobody, and we'll make sure everyone knows it." The group laughed, their voices a mix of amusement and contempt. Another boy, a lanky kid named Ryan, took a marker and scribbled clown on Aisha's locker. "There, there," he said, his tone mocking. "Now everyone knows what you are." The other students in the hallway continued to whisper, their voices a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "She's just trying to be nice." A girl in a volleyball uniform murmured. "They're going too far," her friend replied, but no one intervened. Aisha felt their stares, a weight she couldn't escape, her shame a heavy burden. But she held on to her joy, her resilience, the lessons from her uncle, a WWE wrestler who had always encouraged her to shine. "Keep laughing, kid," he'd said, his voice a quiet encouragement, a mantra that gave her strength. The tension in the hallway was palpable, the air thick with the weight of Heather's malice. Aisha's heart raced, her mind racing. She didn't know how much longer she could endure this, how much more she could take. But she knew a moment of reckoning was coming, a moment that would push her to her breaking point, a moment that would test her strength, her truth, her very identity. Then when the cafeteria at Oakwood High School buzzed with the chaotic energy of lunchtime, the long tables packed with students, the air filled with the clatter of trays and the hum of overlapping conversations. Aisha Carter sat at a corner table, her small frame hunched over a tray of untouched food, her bright yellow dress now stained with soda from the hallway incident, her curly ponytail slightly askew, her brown eyes clouded with a mix of hurt and determination. A crumpled notebook lay beside her, filled with new jokes she'd hoped to share at the comedy club. Aisha's cheerful spirit was a flickering flame, her love for humor a lifeline in the storm of her daily life. But at Oakwood High, that light made her a target, her classmates shunning her warmth for reasons she couldn't fully grasp. Aisha was often the smallest in her class, her presence an easy mark for those who thrived on cruelty, as she picked at her food. A group of students approached her table, their laughter a dark omen. Heather Brooks led the pack, her long blonde hair swaying with each confident step, her icy blue eyes glinting with a malicious intent. Her friends, Lauren, Ethan, and Ryan, flanked her, their towering figures casting shadows over Aisha, their voices a barrage of scorn. "Look at her," Heather called, her voice sharp, her tone loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Sitting all alone. Guess no one wants to hear your stupid jokes." Aisha's heart sank, her hands trembling as she gripped her fork. She tried to focus on her tray, her smile a quiet defiance. But Heather's voice sliced through her defenses like a razor. She's so pathetic, Heather continued, her tone mocking. Always trying to be funny, but no one's laughing with you. They're laughing at you. Her friends laughed, their voices a chorus of cruelty. Aisha's cheeks burned, her hands trembling. She wanted to fight back, to tell Heather she was wrong, but the fear of escalating the situation, of drawing more attention, kept her silent. She turned back to her tray, her heart aching. She just wanted to be herself, to share her joy and peace. But Heather wasn't done, her voice a relentless assault. "What's in that notebook?" she said, her tone sharp. "More of your dumb jokes? You're wasting your time. No one cares." Aisha's throat tightened, her voice barely a whisper. "I just want to make people happy," she said, her words a quiet defiance. "I'm not hurting anyone." Heather's laugh was loud, her voice a mix of amusement and contempt. "Happy?" she said, her tone mocking. You're a loser, and you're making everyone miserable." The group laughed harder, their voices a mix of amusement and scorn. The tension escalated as Heather's group grew bolder, their actions more vicious. Lauren stepped forward. "Hey, Aisha," she called, her voice sharp. She grabbed a carton of milk from a nearby table and accidentally spilled it onto Aisha's notebook, the white liquid soaking the pages. "Oops," she said, her tone mocking. "Guess your jokes are all washed up now." Aisha's heart raced, her hands trembling. "That's mine," she said, her voice steady despite the rising panic. "Those were my jokes." Oh, Lauren laughed, and her voice a mix of amusement and contempt. "Make me stop," she challenged, her tone a taunt. Heather smirked, her voice sharp. "She won't," she said. "She's too small, too weak. She doesn't belong here." The group closed in, their presence a suffocating threat. Ethan, with a cruel grin, grabbed a handful of mashed potatoes from his tray and smeared it onto Aisha's dress. "Oops," he said, his tone mocking. "Guess you'll have to go on stage looking like that." Aisha wiped the mashed potatoes from her dress, her hands trembling, her voice a quiet defiance. "I'm not giving up," she said, her words a quiet promise. "I belong here." Heather's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. "You'll never belong," she snarled, her voice cold. "You're a nobody, and we'll make sure everyone knows it." The group laughed, their voices a mix of amusement and contempt. Ryan took it a step further. "Let's see how funny you are now," he said, his voice sharp. He grabbed a ketchup packet, squeezed it, and splattered the red sauce across Aisha's face. "There," he said, his tone mocking. "Now you look like the clown you are." Aisha wiped the ketchup from her eyes, her hands trembling, her voice breaking with frustration. "Stop it!" she shouted, her voice a plea. "I didn't do anything to you." Heather laughed, her voice a mix of amusement and malice. "You're here," she said, her tone icy. "That's enough. You're a waste of space. A joke." The group tightened their circle around Aisha, their voices a chorus of mockery. "She's going to cry," Lauren said, her tone mocking. "Look at the baby," Ethan added. The other students in the cafeteria glanced over, their whispers a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "She's just trying to eat," a boy in a soccer jersey murmured. "They're going too far," his friend replied. But no one intervened. Aisha felt their stares, a weight she couldn't escape, her shame a heavy burden. But she held on to her resilience, her joy, the lessons from her uncle, a WWE wrestler who had always encouraged her to shine. "Keep shining, kid," he'd said, his voice a quiet encouragement, a mantra that gave her strength. The tension in the cafeteria was palpable, the air thick with the weight of Heather's malice. Aisha's heart raced, her mind racing. She didn't know how much longer she could endure this, how much more she could take. But she knew a moment of reckoning was coming, a moment that would push her to her breaking point, a moment that would test her strength, her truth, her very identity. But the small meeting room at Oakwood High School, reserved for the comedy club, was a cozy space with mismatched chairs arranged in a semicircle. its walls decorated with faded posters of famous comedians, the air tinged with the faint scent of chalk and old books. Aisha Carter sat nervously on the edge of her chair, her small frame barely filling the seat. Her bright yellow dress now cleaned of the cafeteria stains, but still a vivid reminder of her earlier humiliation. Her curly ponytail tied high, her brown eyes flickering with a mix of hope and anxiety. A crumpled piece of paper in her hands held her latest set of jokes. Aisha's love for humor was her refuge, a way to connect and bring joy. But at Oakwood High, that passion made her a target. Her classmates often ridiculed her efforts, their rejection a constant ache. As the comedy club meeting began, the room filled with a handful of students, their voices a low hum of chatter. The club advisor, Ms. Carter, no relation to Aisha, stood at the front, her glasses perched on her nose, her smile encouraging. "Who'd like to go next?" she asked, her voice warm. Aisha raised her hand, her heart racing. "I'll go," she said, her voice soft but determined. Miss Carter nodded. "Great, Aisha, let's hear it," she said, her tone supportive. Aisha stood, her small frame a stark contrast to the larger students around her. She smoothed her dress, her hands trembling as she unfolded her paper. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice quivering but clear. "I've got a few jokes for you today." The room fell silent, the other students watching with varying degrees of interest. But Heather Brooks and her group were there, seated in the back. Their presence a dark cloud. Heather's long blonde hair framed her face, her icy blue eyes glinting with malice. Her friends, Lauren, Ethan, and Ryan, sat beside her, their smirks a silent promise of trouble. Aisha took a deep breath, her voice steadying. "So, my uncle always says I'm a natural comedian," she said, her tone light. "He's a wrestler in the WWE, and he says I'm funnier than any of his opponents." A few students chuckled, but Heather's voice cut through the room like a whip. "WWE," she called, her tone sharp, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're making that up. What a liar." The group laughed, their voices a chorus of scorn. Aisha's heart sank, her hands trembling as she gripped her paper. "I'm not lying," she said, her voice steady but strained. "My uncle really is in the WWE. He's famous." Lauren snorted, her voice mocking. "Famous?" she said. "You, related to someone famous? That's the funniest thing you've said all day." Oh, the group laughed harder, their voices a mix of amusement and contempt. Ethan chimed in, his tone sharp. "She's delusional," he said. "She probably made up her uncle to feel better about being a nobody." Ryan nodded, his voice mocking. "Yeah, what's his name, then? The WWE clown?" The group laughed again, their voices a relentless assault. The other students in the room glanced over, their whispers a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "She's just trying to be funny." A boy in a baseball cap murmured, "They're being awful to her," his friend replied. But no one intervened, their silence a weight on Aisha's shoulders. She felt alone, her shame a heavy burden, her passion for comedy a double-edged sword. It was her joy, her escape, but it also made her a target. Aisha tried to continue, her voice trembling. "Anyway, here's my joke," she said, her tone softer now. "Why did the wrestler bring a ladder to the match? Because he wanted to take it to the next level." A few students chuckled, but Heather's voice drowned them out. "Boo," she shouted, her tone sharp. "That was awful. Stick to being a clown, not telling jokes." The group laughed, their voices a mix of amusement and scorn. Lauren stood, her voice mocking. "Let's give her a real laugh," she said. She grabbed a nearby bag of chips and tossed a handful at Aisha, the crumbs scattering across her dress. "Oops," she said, her tone mocking. "Guess you'll have to tell a joke about that." Aisha's heart raced, her hands trembling. "Stop it," she said, her voice breaking with frustration. "I'm just trying to share my jokes." Ethan laughed, his voice sharp. "Share them with your imaginary uncle," he said, his tone mocking. "No one here wants to hear them." Ryan added, his voice cruel. You're a nobody, and you'll always be a nobody. Stop pretending otherwise. The group closed in, their presence a looming threat. Heather stepped forward, her tone sharp. You're embarrassing yourself, she said, her voice cold. You don't belong here. Go back to wherever you came from. The group laughed, their voices a chorus of contempt. Aisha wiped the crumbs from her dress, her hands trembling, her voice a quiet defiance. I belong here, she said, her words a quiet promise. And my uncle is real. I'll prove it. Heather's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. Prove it, she said, her voice mocking. You're delusional. Everyone knows you're a liar. The other students in the room continued to whisper, their voices a mix of curiosity and discomfort. She's just trying to have fun, a girl in a volleyball uniform murmured. They're going too far, her friend replied, but no one intervened. Aisha felt their stares, a weight she couldn't escape. Her shame a heavy burden, but she held on to her resilience, her humor, the lessons from her uncle, a WWE wrestler who had always encouraged her to shine. Keep shining, and kid, he'd said, his voice a quiet encouragement, a mantra that gave her strength. The tension in the comedy club room was palpable, the air thick with the weight of Heather's malice. Aisha's heart raced, her mind racing. She didn't know how much longer she could endure this, how much more she could take. But she knew a moment of reckoning was coming, a moment that would push her to her breaking point, a moment that would test her strength, her truth, her very identity. The principal's office at Oakwood High School was a stark, imposing space, its walls adorned with stern portraits of past administrators, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and the weight of authority. Aisha Carter sat in a rigid chair before the principal's desk, her small frame dwarfed by the room's severity, her bright yellow dress now marred with faint stains from the comedy club incident, her curly ponytail slightly frayed, her brown eyes clouded with a mix of hurt and defiance, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her heart pounding with a storm of emotions. Principal Grayson, a tall, stern woman with graying hair and sharp gray eyes, sat behind the desk, her expression a blend of impatience and disapproval. Miss Carter, the comedy club advisor, stood nearby, her glasses slipping down her nose, her face etched with a mix of concern and judgment. Aisha, Principal Grayson began, her voice cold, her tone cutting through the silence. I've heard some troubling things about your behavior in the comedy club. You've been disruptive, making up wild stories, and causing a scene. Aisha's heart sank, her hands trembling as she spoke. I wasn't disruptive, she said, her voice steady but strained. I was just telling jokes. They laughed at me. They threw things at me. I didn't do anything wrong. Ms. Carter adjusted her glasses, her voice sharp. You told a story about your uncle being a WWE wrestler, she said, her tone mocking. That's a ridiculous claim. Aisha, it's disruptive to spread such fantasies. You need to stop living in a dream world. Aisha's breath caught, her voice rising with desperation. It's not a fantasy, she said, her words a plea. My uncle is a WWE wrestler. He's real. I'm not lying. Principal Grayson leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Enough, she said, her tone final. This kind of behavior is unacceptable. Aisha, you're causing trouble with these delusions. I'm calling your parents to discuss this immediately. Aisha's heart raced, her mind racing. Please, she said, her voice trembling. I'm telling the truth. Don't call my parents. Let me prove it. But Principal Grayson was unmoved, her voice cold. You've had your chance, she said, her tone sharp. She picked up the phone, dialing a number. This is Principal Grayson, she said, her voice formal. I need to speak with Aisha Carter's guardian about a disciplinary issue. Aisha's tears threatened to spill, her heart aching. She felt trapped, the weight of their disbelief, the stares of the principal and Ms. Carter, her shame a heavy burden. She wanted to scream, to fight back, to tell them they were wrong, but the fear of making things worse, of losing everything, kept her silent. She lowered her head, her hands trembling, her mind racing. She didn't know how she'd survive this, how she'd endure the fallout, but she knew help was coming. She had called her uncle the night before, after the comedy club incident. "Uncle Marcus," she'd said, her voice breaking. "They don't believe me. They're saying I'm a liar." Marcus's deep voice had been a lifeline. "I'm coming, Aisha," he'd said, his tone of promise. "I'll be there tomorrow." The tension in the principal's office was palpable, the air thick with the weight of disbelief. But then the door burst open, and a massive figure stepped inside, his presence filling the room with an undeniable force. Marcus the Titan Carter, a WWE superstar known for his towering physique and electrifying performances, stood in the doorway, his dark skin gleaming under the lights, his muscular frame clad in a black leather jacket and jeans, his bald head shining, his brown eyes blazing with a mix of fury and protectiveness. Principal Grayson froze, her phone slipping from her hand, her jaw dropping. Mr. Carter?" she stammered, her voice a mix of shock and recognition. "Miss..." Carter's glasses nearly fell off her nose, her hands trembling. You're the Titan?" she whispered, her tone a mix of awe and disbelief. Marcus's gaze locked onto Aisha, his expression softening as he saw the tears in her eyes. "Aisha," he said, his deep voice a warm anchor. He strode over, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I'm here, baby girl," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Aisha clung to him, her tears spilling over. "I told them, Uncle Marcus," she said, her voice breaking. "They didn't believe me." Marcus turned to Principal Grayson, his gaze a storm of fury. "You called my niece a liar?" he demanded, his voice a low growl that shook the room. "You let these kids bully her, and then you blamed her." Principal Grayson stammered, her hands trembling. I didn't know," she said, her voice quivering. We thought she was making it up." Marcus's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. "You thought wrong," he said, his tone a command. "My niece has been through hell at this school, bullied, mocked, humiliated, and you let it happen. You owe her an apology, and you'll make sure it stops. Now." "Ms." Carter stepped forward, her voice trembling. We'll investigate," she said, her tone shaky. "We'll address the bullying." Marcus's gaze swept over her, his voice unyielding. "You'll do more than that," he said, his tone final. "You'll protect her, you'll support her, and you'll let her shine. She's a Carter, and we don't back down." The crowd of students who had gathered outside the office, drawn by the commotion, erupted into gasps, their voices a mix of shock and awe. "That's the Titan." A boy in a basketball jersey shouted, "Aisha wasn't lying." His friend replied. Heather and her group, who had been summoned to the office, stood frozen in the hallway, their faces pale, their smirks replaced by fear. I didn't know," Heather stammered, her voice a whisper, but Marcus's voice was a thunderclap. "You didn't care," he said, his tone sharp. "You hurt my niece, and you'll answer for it." The tension in the principal's office was palpable, the air thick with the weight of Marcus's presence. Aisha's heart soared, her tears now of relief. She had faced her tormentors, faced their lies, and now the truth had set her free. A moment of reckoning had arrived, a moment that would change everything, a moment that affirmed her strength, her truth, her very identity. The main hall of Oakwood High School buzzed with a charged atmosphere, the tiled floor reflecting the late morning light streaming through the windows, the air thick with the murmurs of students who had gathered to witness the aftermath of Marcus Carter's dramatic arrival. Aisha Carter stood beside her uncle, her small frame dwarfed by his towering presence, her bright yellow dress a symbol of her resilient spirit, her curly ponytail neat despite the chaos of the day, her brown eyes shining with a mix of relief and newfound confidence, her hands clasped in front of her heart still racing from the confrontation in the principal's office. Marcus, known as the Titan in the WWE, stood with his arms crossed, his black leather jacket and jeans a stark contrast to his commanding aura, his dark eyes scanning the crowd with a protective intensity. The students whispered in awe, their voices a mix of shock and admiration. "He's really the Titan." A girl in a cheerleader uniform whispered, "Aisha was telling the truth," her friend replied. Principal Grayson emerged from her office, her face pale, her gray eyes wide with a mix of embarrassment and determination. Miss Carter, the comedy club advisor, followed close behind, her glasses slipping down her nose, her expression a blend of regret and unease. "Students, please return to your classes," Grayson announced, her voice shaky but firm. But the crowd lingered, their curiosity too strong. Heather Brooks and her group, Lauren, Ethan, and Ryan, stood near the edge of the hall, their faces ashen, their usual smirks replaced by fear. "We need to address the allegations of bullying," Grayson continued, her tone more resolute. "Effective immediately, we're launching a full investigation into the treatment of Aisha Carter." The crowd murmured, their voices a mix of surprise and support. "It's about time," a boy in a soccer jersey muttered. "They've been awful to her," his friend agreed. Grayson turned to Heather and her group, her voice sharp. "You four will be suspended pending the investigation," she said, her tone final. "You'll also be required to attend mandatory anti-bullying counseling. And I expect a written apology to Aisha by the end of the week." Heather's jaw dropped, her hands trembling. "Suspended?" she stammered, her voice quivering. But we didn't do anything that bad." Marcus stepped forward, his presence a storm of authority. "You humiliated my niece," he said, his voice a low growl that silenced the hall. "You threw things at her. You called her a liar. You made her feel small. That's more than bad. That's unacceptable." Lauren's face turned red, her voice a whisper. "We didn't know," she said, her tone shaky, but Marcus's gaze was unyielding. "You didn't care," he said, his tone sharp. "You targeted her because she's different, because she's smaller. But you picked the wrong girl. She's a Carter, and we don't break." The crowd erupted into murmurs, their voices a mix of awe and support. "She's amazing," a girl in a volleyball uniform shouted. "They got what they deserved," her friend replied. Principal Grayson nodded, her voice softer now. "Aisha, I owe you an apology," she said, her tone sincere. "We failed you. We should have listened. Should have protected you. I'm sorry, and we'll make this right." Miss Carter stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry too, Aisha," she said, her tone shaky. "I should have believed you. I'll support your comedy from now on." Aisha's heart soared, her tears of relief spilling over. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "I just wanted to make people laugh." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice warm. "You will, kid," he said, his tone a promise. "You've got a gift, and no one's going to stop you now." The crowd cheered, their voices a wave of support. "Aisha! Aisha!" They chanted, their admiration a testament to her resilience. The school's reaction marked a turning point. The investigation revealed months of bullying, documented by other students who came forward with their own stories. Heather and her group faced further consequences, including community service and a year-long probation. The comedy club became a safe space, its members rallying around Aisha. "You're hilarious," a shy boy named Sam said, his voice warm. "I laughed at your ladder joke." Aisha smiled, her heart full. "Thanks," she replied, her tone steady. She started writing new material, her confidence growing with each performance. The club advisor, Ms. Carter, became her biggest supporter. "You've got a future in comedy," she said, her tone encouraging. Aisha's uncle, Marcus, stayed in touch, sending her messages of support. "You're a star, Aisha," he'd text, his words a lifeline. She began to see herself through his eyes, not as a victim, but as a fighter, a creator, a force. The school itself had changed, the anti-bullying initiatives fostering a new sense of community. Aisha became a symbol of resilience. Her story, a beacon for those who felt out of place. She organized a Laugh for Unity event, a comedy night to bring students together. The auditorium packed with laughter. "We're better when we lift each other up," Aisha said in her opening set, her voice echoing through the space. The crowd cheered, their voices a testament to her impact. The tension that had once defined Oakwood High was gone, replaced by a sense of unity. Aisha's heart raced with pride, her mind soaring. She knew this was just the beginning, that there would be more challenges, more stages to conquer, but she was ready, ready to face them with the strength she'd found, the strength that had carried her from a place of shame to a position of inspiration. A moment of justice had arrived, a moment that would shape her future, a moment that affirmed her strength, her truth, her very identity. Yet the auditorium at Oakwood High School had become a haven of laughter and connection. Its once dreary walls now adorned with vibrant posters celebrating creativity, the air filled with the buzz of anticipation and the scent of fresh popcorn. Aisha Carter stood backstage, her small frame a bundle of nervous energy, her bright yellow dress swapped for a sparkling purple one that shimmered under the stage lights, her curly ponytail bouncing as she adjusted her microphone, her brown eyes glowing with a newfound confidence that had blossomed since Marcus Carter's arrival. A neatly typed script in her hands held her latest comedy set. Aisha's love for humor had once made her a target, but now it was her strength. Her classmates no longer shunned her warmth, their acceptance a testament to her resilience. As she prepared for the school's annual talent show, the memory of her uncle's support still fueled her. "You're a star, Aisha," Marcus had said, his deep voice a steady anchor. And those words had carried her through the weeks following his dramatic appearance. The school had undergone a profound shift since the investigation into her bullying. Heather, Lauren, Ethan, and Ryan had been disciplined. Their probation and mandatory counseling, a clear message that cruelty would not be tolerated. Principal Grayson had doubled down on anti-bullying initiatives, and the comedy club had become a thriving space of support. Aisha's victory over her tormentors, a catalyst for change. As the talent show began, the auditorium filled with students, teachers, and parents, their voices a hum of excitement. Aisha peeked through the curtain, her heart racing as she saw the crowd, her former bullies seated in the back, their expressions a mix of unease and curiosity. The host, a senior named Mia, stepped onto the stage, her voice bright. "Next up, we have Aisha Carter with her stand-up comedy set." "Welcome," she announced. The crowd clapped, their cheers a wave of encouragement. Aisha took a deep breath, her small frame stepping into the spotlight. "Hi, everyone," she said, her voice clear and confident. "I've got some new jokes for you today." The crowd settled, their eyes on her, a few supportive cheers echoing from her new friends in the comedy club. "So, I learned something recently," Aisha began, her tone light. "Turns out, being small doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're a surprise package, like a tiny firecracker." The crowd laughed, their voices a warm wave. Aisha's confidence soared, her heart full. She continued her set, her jokes landing with precision, each laugh a victory. "And speaking of surprises," she said, her voice playful, "my uncle, he's a WWE wrestler. You might have heard of him. The Titan? He says I'm the real heavyweight champ of comedy." The crowd erupted, their cheers a mix of awe and delight. Heather and her group sat in stunned silence, their faces pale, the memory of their mockery now a bitter pill. Aisha's set ended to thunderous applause, the crowd standing to cheer. "She's hilarious," a boy in a soccer jersey shouted. "She's a star," his friend replied. Aisha beamed, her heart soaring. She had turned her pain into laughter, her shame into triumph. Backstage, Marcus called her on video chat, his face filling the screen. "I saw your set online, kid," he said, his voice warm. "You killed it. I'm so proud of you." Aisha's eyes glistened. "Thanks, Uncle Marcus," she said, her voice steady. I couldn't have done it without you. Marcus chuckled. You did this on your own, he said. I just gave you a nudge. Keep shining, Aisha. Nadine, the call ended, but his words stayed with her, a beacon of encouragement. The talent show marked a turning point, Aisha's confidence growing with each performance. She became a leader in the comedy club, mentoring younger students. Your voice matters, she'd tell them, her tone warm. Don't let anyone dim your light. Her words resonated, the club members looking up to her with admiration. You make comedy fun, a shy girl named Lila said, her voice soft. Aisha smiled. We make it fun together, she replied, her tone steady. Her influence spread beyond the club. Students who had faced bullying sought her out. You gave me courage. A boy in a track uniform said, his voice trembling, I thought I'd never speak up, but you did. Aisha listened, her heart full. You're braver than you think, she said, her words a reflection of her own journey. The school continued to change, the anti-bullying initiatives fostering a culture of kindness. Aisha organized a Comedy for Kindness event, a fundraiser to support local youth programs. The auditorium packed with laughter and support. Humor can heal, Aisha said in her opening set, her voice echoing through the space. The crowd cheered, their voices a testament to her impact. Miss Carter, the club advisor, watched with pride. You've got a gift, Aisha, she said, her tone encouraging. Aisha nodded, her heart full. I'm just getting started, she replied, her tone steady. Her uncle, Marcus, continued to support her, sending her tickets to his WWE matches. You're my VIP, he'd text, his words a lifeline. Aisha began to see herself as a performer, a creator, a force, her confidence a shield against the past. The tension that had once defined Oakwood High was gone, replaced by a sense of community. Aisha's heart raced with pride, her mind soaring. She knew this was just the beginning, that there would be more challenges, more audiences to win over. But she was ready, ready to face them with the strength she'd found, the strength that had carried her from a place of rejection to a stage of celebration. A moment of empowerment had arrived, a moment that would shape her future, a moment that affirmed her strength, her truth, her very identity. Moment, the grand stage of the Chicago Comedy Festival illuminated the night, its vibrant lights casting a warm glow over the packed auditorium, the air alive with the hum of thousands of attendees, their laughter echoing through the vast space. Aisha Carter stood at the center of the spotlight, a microphone in her hand, her small frame now a commanding presence, her sparkling purple dress catching the light, her curly hair styled in elegant waves, her brown eyes sparkling with a radiant joy that had grown through years of perseverance. She was no longer the timid freshman from Oakwood High. She was Aisha Carter, a rising star in stand-up comedy, her name on the marquee a testament to her journey. The audience waited eagerly, their applause a thunderous welcome as she began her set. Hey, Chicago, Aisha called, her voice confident and clear. I'm Aisha Carter, and I've got some stories to share. Mac, the crowd cheered, their voices a wave of anticipation. Aisha's journey to this stage had been paved with challenges, but her love for humor had carried her through. I used to think being small meant I had to be quiet, she said, her tone playful. But then I realized small packages make the biggest explosions. The audience roared with laughter, their delight a testament to her skill. Aisha continued, her set a blend of wit and heart. I grew up getting laughed at, not for my jokes, but for who I was, she said, her voice softening. Kids at school called me a nobody, said I didn't belong, but I had a secret weapon, my uncle, a WWE superstar, who taught me to fight back with laughter, not fists. The crowd cheered, their voices a mix of awe and admiration. Aisha's uncle, Marcus the Titan Carter, sat in the front row, his massive frame a beacon of pride, his eyes shining as he watched his niece shine. Aisha had come a long way since her days at Oakwood High. Her victory over her bullies had been a turning point. The school's transformation after Marcus's arrival had given her a foundation to grow. The anti-bullying initiatives had fostered a culture of kindness, and the comedy club had become her sanctuary. "You're a natural," Miss Carter, her advisor, had said after her talent show performance, her words a spark that ignited Aisha's ambition. Aisha had poured herself into comedy, writing new sets, performing at every school event, her confidence growing with each laugh. She started a YouTube channel, Aisha's Laugh Lab, sharing her jokes with a growing online audience. Her videos went viral. "She's hilarious," a commenter wrote. "She's going places." Another added. Aisha's heart soared with each message. Her dream of becoming a comedian, no longer a distant hope, but a tangible goal. Her uncle, Marcus, remained her biggest cheerleader. "You're killing it, big kid," he'd say after every performance. His voice a steady encouragement. He connected her with industry contacts. "You've got to meet my friend at the comedy festival," he'd said, his tone warm. That connection had led to Aisha's big break, an invitation to perform at the Chicago Comedy Festival, a platform for rising stars. She had spent months preparing, her set a reflection of her journey. "I used to think I didn't belong," she told the audience, her voice steady. "But I learned that belonging isn't about fitting in. It's about standing out. It's about owning your story, your laughter, your light." The crowd cheered, their applause a testament to her impact. Aisha's set ended to a standing ovation, the audience chanting her name. "Aisha! Aisha!" Their voices a wave of love. She took a bow, her heart full, her mind soaring. She had done it. She had turned her pain into laughter, her shame into triumph. Backstage, Marcus pulled her into a tight hug. "I told you, kid," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're a star." Aisha smiled, her eyes glistening. "Thanks, Uncle Marcus," she said, her tone steady. "I owe it to you." Marcus shook his head. "You did this," he said. "I just helped you see it." The festival marked the beginning of Aisha's rise. She was soon invited to perform at comedy clubs across the country, her name becoming synonymous with resilience and humor. She launched a podcast, Laugh Through It, where she shared stories of overcoming adversity through comedy. Her episodes topped the charts. "She's inspiring," a listener wrote. "She makes me believe in myself," another added. Aisha's influence grew. She started a foundation, Comedy Cares, mission to support young comedians from marginalized communities. "Your voice matters," she'd tell them, her tone warm. "Don't let anyone silence you." Her words echoed her own journey. Her foundation hosted workshops, comedy camps, and open mic nights, giving kids a stage to shine. "You're the future," Aisha said at one event, her voice echoing through a packed venue. The crowd cheered, their voices a testament to her impact. Years later, Aisha stood on the stage of a sold-out theater in Los Angeles. A different audience, a different city, but the same message. "I was told I didn't belong," she said, her voice steady. "But I learned that belonging is about creating your own space, about making others laugh, about fighting for your joy no matter the odds." The audience stood, their applause a testament to her legacy. Aisha took a bow, her eyes shining with tears of joy. She felt powerful, unstoppable, a force. And as she stepped off the stage, her family and friends waiting in the wings, their smiles radiant. Aisha knew this was her destiny, that there would be more challenges, more stages to conquer, but she was ready, ready to face them with the strength she'd forged, the strength that had carried her from a school of rejection to a world of laughter. Aisha had turned her struggle into a legacy, her story into a movement, and in doing so, she had shown the world that she belonged, that she mattered, that she could make the world laugh. Aisha transformed bullying into a comedy legacy, shining as a stand-up star. Thanks for joining us. If her story touched you, smash that like button, share with friends, and subscribe with notifications on for more incredible journeys of resilience and joy.